Everyone. Hello and welcome to TESOL Hub. And this is our fourth lecture in TESOL Hub course. It's a totally free course for English language teachers. It's mainly about the content of the 120-hour TESOL course. And until now, we haven't started with the lesson planning, but we go through the process in a scaffolded way until we master everything before we start the lesson planning or the frameworks. And today, our lecture will be about one of the most important approach in English language teaching. It is guided discovery. We all know that our classrooms are filled with diverse learners, each with unique strengths and learning styles. But how can we effectively cater to these differences without feeling overwhelmed? Throughout this session, we will dive deeply into a practical differentiation strategies that you will easily implement in your classroom, and using the guided discovery in teaching will transform your class into an active learning classroom. So let's start with today's agenda. Today's agenda will be, first, we will know the definition of guided discovery, the rationale of using guided discovery in the classroom, the aspects of guided discovery in English language teaching, the importance of guided discovery, some examples of guided discovery in the classroom, and that we will finish our lecture by mentioning the differences between controlled practice, semi-controlled practice, and freer practice. And these things are very important when it comes to our frameworks and when it comes to lesson planning. So we will start with guided discovery. Guided discovery is a teaching approach. We use it whenever we teach English as a second language or as a foreign language. And it's mainly to encourage a student to discover language rules, patterns, concepts for themselves throughout carefully designed activities. So it means that you as a teacher, you have to design some activities to let your students discover the language rules, patterns, and the concepts. Instead of directly presenting the explanation, you know that this is the normal lecture style in the class. When the teacher is starting to explain the rule, then give the examples and the prompt, then he or she will give the students exercises to answer. This is the normal lecture. But the guided discovery is a totally different one, which is perfect for students' understanding and for improving the problem-solving skills and active learning strategies. The rationale behind using such approach, it means that why we could use such approach in our classroom. You know, whenever we use this approach, it gives the students their own understanding of the word rather than recording the ideas or the facts that you're giving them. So you provide students with opportunities to learn through inquiry. It means that they are answering questions, they are asking questions, and as well as critical thinking techniques or skills. So a guided discovery is an effective teaching approach. So let's start by presenting language. Whenever we present language, there are two ways to present language. First one, which is deductive approach, is the inductive approach. Look at the first one. So let's start with the deductive approach. In the deductive approach, the teacher is giving the students the explanation in advance. So the teacher is explaining the lesson, then the students will go through the examples and they can start the practice. Let's look at this teacher. This teacher is telling the student that we use an for nouns that start with a vowel, and we use a whenever we have nouns that start with consonants, for example. So if we have the word dentist, we can say a dentist. And if we have the word apple, we say an apple. Can we say a dentist and dentist? So they would say no. In this case, in this situation, the teacher is explaining the lesson and the students are not eliciting anything. Moreover, they are not discovering the rule. The teacher is explaining everything. Let's look at another example. Look at this sentence. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. It is a deductive approach. It means that we start with the rule, then we go to the examples. And this is the traditional way of teaching grammar in most of the national schools. However, there is another interesting way, or there is another effective way, which is the guided discovery. And look at the examples here in the book. In the book, they are presenting the rule to the students, giving them the words like London is bigger than Paris. So if we give the students big, bigger, small, smaller, good, better, and then we give them examples, we explain the rule, we explain everything about the rule. After that, we start with examples about the rule, and then we give the students exercises to answer. This is a deductive approach. If we go to the inductive approach, it means that we give students examples, then we go to the rules. How come? Look at this example. The target sentence here, if I won the lottery, I'd buy a new car. So if you look at the sentence here, you will give the student the target sentence and you will start asking them concept checking questions. When you ask them these concept checking questions, you help them or you give them some clues to understand the concept, the usage of if conditional here. So look at the question number 1. Have I won the lottery? No. Am I going to win the lottery? Probably not. Maybe. Am I going to buy a new car? At the moment, I cannot. So probably not. Has he got a lottery ticket? Maybe, because we said, if I won the lottery, it means that I have the lottery. So is this real or imaginary situation? It's an imaginary situation because he didn't win the lottery. So when you ask the questions, students are answering these questions to understand the concept of if conditional in this usage or in the second conditional of if. So you didn't explain the lesson, then you give examples, you give them the sentence, and you ask them some questions. These questions are mainly like clues to help them understand the concept. So if we want to, let's say, compare between the deductive approach and the inductive approach. In the deductive approach, the teacher is presenting the lesson. It's a lecture mood. And then he gives the learner the rules, after that examples, then practice. So it is a teacher-centered approach to present a new language. But in the inductive approach, the teacher is given an example and asks students to observe and then analyze and explore the rule. So students here are trying to identify the pattern, the formula or the form, the rules, and discover and underline the principles by themselves without the teacher's help. So the teacher here is a facilitator for the learning process, but in the deductive approach, it's a lecture mood. So it's a teacher-centered class. So if we talk about the guided discovery, of course, guided discovery will be deductive or inductive? Inductive, excellent. So it is inductive learning approach. So learners are presented with examples or data related to the language concept being taught. Through observation, analysis, and exploration, they attempt to identify patterns, the rules or the form, and discover the principles by themselves. And in guided discovery, we go into 4 phases. The first one, introduction. So when you introduce the example to the students to attract their attention to the lesson. And then you start asking them open-ended questions or concept-checking questions to help them or to give them clues to observe or to make observation or comparisons between the examples. It depends on the lesson that you're teaching. Then the next phase, you ask more specific questions. When you ask more specific questions here, you focus on the concept, you focus on the usage, you focus on the form. Then you take them to a definition or a concept or the rule. So these are the phases: introduction with examples, asking them concept-checking questions, more specific questions to elicit the concept or the generalization. Then you go closer to have the application, to apply on what they discovered, so they can, let's say the rule and they apply it on in a new context. So now they are able to prepare themselves or to start giving you some examples about the new concept. So think about the key aspects of guided discovery in English language teaching class. So of course, it's an inductive learning, as we mentioned before. And then we need the teacher guidance. The teacher's role here is to carefully guide the learners through the discovery process by providing prompt. You know, the prompt is, it's mainly like you're giving them scaffolded, or you're giving them tips, so you help them and you scaffold your way until they get the concept or the information. So we use the scaffolding and feedback. So this guidance can take various forms, such as question techniques like the CCQs, as we mentioned, elicitation, providing them with hints or clues if we need that. It depends on the complexity of the lesson, as we mentioned before. Then we go to the third aspect here, which is learner engagement. And we said before that we need to improve the engagement, or to have students who are totally engaged in the learning process while the session. So using the guided discovery activities promote active learning, engagement, critical thinking, problem solving. Moreover, it gives the student deeper understanding to the concept. It also improves the collaborative learning in the classroom, because while giving them some guided questions, you can divide them into groups so they can share their ideas, interact together, brainstorming, discuss. So you have collaborative learning in the class. And the last one, which is gradual fading of support. What is the meaning of gradual fading of support? If you look at this is here, these steps in the stairs. So we have to divide the content into small chunks to make it easier for the students to understand. So we start with an easy thing, one by one, until we go through. So here it means that we have here support. Whenever we have support, we give the student great support in the beginning, and one by one we remove scaffolding until we reach, of course, the last step of the lesson or the task. So gradual fading of support, it's mainly about scaffolding techniques that you use in the classroom. When you start with a very easy task, one by one, it's more challenging until you remove scaffolding, and the student now is able to do the task by themselves or independently. It works well exactly whenever you have below average students. It works in a great way, starting with an easy task one by one until they get into the last one. And if we're explaining or introducing the concept, start by asking them some easy questions. One by one, go to more specific questions. So you start with the easy one, so you give now a chance for the below average students to concentrate and also to get engaged in the lesson. Moreover, they have some self-confidence to answer the easy questions. One by one, you go more specific, and now you can have the help of the on-level students and high achievers answering the questions. At the same time, the below average student is learning from their peers, which is perfect, of course. So think about the benefits that we get whenever we have guided discovery in the learning classroom. So the first one, we increased the learner's motivation and engagement. So as we mentioned before, that when they actively participate in the discovery process, learners are more invested in their learning and feel a sense of ownership over the knowledge they acquire. With the deeper understanding, because learners develop a more profound understanding of the language concepts by discovering and exploring the rules, then the patterns by themselves and the form instead of memorizing them. The next one, development of critical thinking and problem-solving skills, which are very, very important, because in guided discovery activities, we encourage learners to analyze, to find the reason, to solve a problem, and to find the definition, the whole definition of the concept or of the usage of the grammar rule that they are studying. So now we improved critical thinking using the questions, of course, and problem-solving skills because they find an answer to the question that you give them, even if they are more specific. The next one, long-term orientation. So long-term orientation means that the knowledge that the students acquire here throughout the discovery process or the discovery approach, it's let's say, it lasts longer than receiving the information like a lecture mode. Because they had discussion, they had active learning class, and they completed their ideas with each other, as you see here. So each student has his own idea, each student has his own answer, and they put all these things together. So of course, this learning is deeper than just listening to information and in a lecture mode. I guess now we finished the guided discovery way, and let's sum up. We said guided discovery is a teaching approach, which is mainly to let the student discover, to let the students analyze, to let the students learn through exploring, not receiving the information or spoon-feeding the information. We mentioned also that the guided discovery approach is based on the principles of inductive learning approach, which is which is improved deeply understanding to the concept or the rules, and also improves the active learning classroom strategies. Moreover, improves the problem-solving skills and the critical thinking skills. Now we'll be going through 3 different types of practice. So students now understood the lesson and they discovered the rule and they know everything about the rule. So if you're teaching grammar or whatever, and you will start now giving them practice. So there are 3 types of practice. So the first one, control the practice, semi-control the practice, and the last one, freer practice. What is the difference between the 3 types of practice? And we need that whenever we start with the frameworks. Let's start with control the practice. So let's say that in a field of English language teaching, there are different types of practice activities that can be employed in to help the students or to help the learners develop their language skills. These activities can be categorized into the 3 categories that we mentioned: controlled practice, semi-controlled practice, and freer practice. Each type of practice serves a different purpose and offers varying levels, or let's say various options of control and freedom for learners. So let's look at the first one, which is the controlled practice. The controlled practice activities are highly structured to provide learners with high level of control and support. That's why we start with the controlled practice after finishing the presentation. Why? It's mainly to scaffold the content. It's mainly to give the students help and support until they master the new lesson. So in controlled practice, the activities are typically focused on specific language forms. and it mainly focuses on the accuracy. So control the practice focuses mainly on the accuracy, not fluency. So it is mainly to target or to use the accurate use of the target language, the form, the structure, and the repetition. With these activities, our learners are expected to produce the language within limited context because you give them a question with one answer. So there's only one correct answer for this question. So here you limit the freedom for the answers because you're scaffolding your way until your students are okay with the new lesson, or are they are okay now with the target language. So you can one by one remove scaffolding and you start giving them the freer practice. So in the controlled practice, there are many examples that we can use in the classroom. I divided them into some, let's say, 3 categories. The first one for the controlled practice, repetition-based activities. And it's mainly for model and drill. If you remember, we mentioned in drilling, types of drilling in one of our lectures. There are many types of drilling that you can use to help the students understand the structure, to repeat after you individually or in as a class or in groups or in pairs, whatever you want. And there are many types. You have to watch the drilling, the types of drilling lecture. It will help you a lot. And also you can give them games with limited answer choices, like yes or no, I don't know games, like true or false quizzes, interactive quizzes on the board. These are some ways for controlled practice. So controlled practice are not only a question in a sheet, but it can be also a game or an online quiz, but it should be like giving them one option or 50-50 chance question to help the students get or understand the structure more and more. Moreover, you scaffold it so below average students, they have the chance to find the correct answers or to have the correct answers whenever they start answering the questions. That's why I told you that the guided discovery approach, it helps you differentiate the instruction easily in the classroom. Some other examples for, some other examples for the controlled practice. The second one, what's wrong? Fill in the blanks activities. Gap fill exercises. So whenever you give them fill in the gaps, there are many types of exercises for filling the gaps. Even we have pictures, even without pictures and so on. And sentence prompts, like students are given a sentence starter and they need to complete using the target language. For example, you give them, he is sleeping, she is sleeping, and so on. So you give them examples to complete sentence prompt. Control the speaking activities, like picture prompts, like whenever you give your students pictures or visuals and you ask them to describe the pictures using the target language. Of course, your choice for the activity will depend on the lesson itself and will depend on the level of your students. So you can vary your control the practice activities from a lesson into another, because we need to vary our ways daily with the students, not to feel bored, and we need them to be interested all the time in completing the session. The next one is information gap activities. And in information gap activities, it could be independent work, it could be pair work. So here it's exactly like students are given different pieces of information and they need to work together to complete the task. And you force them to use the target language to communicate. We finished now the control, the practice that we used directly after finishing the presentation. The next one is semi-controlled practice. And we have something that we say before, which is you remove scaffolding. You started here to remove your support to your students. So with semi-controlled practice, you provide learners with more freedom than controlled practice, but it is still with guidance and support. So these activities are mainly involve the students in the target language, slightly more open-ended context, more or wider range of options more than the previous one. So if we said before that we're going to give them 50-50 chance question, but we have here, we can give them a question with multi-select. They can select more than one answer. Let's say that we can give them role plays or dialogues using the target language, giving them the text and ask them to do so. And we can ask them also to control the writing text. Like, for example, they can write a paragraph with a specific vocabulary or a specific grammar structure or the target language that you're teaching. Filling in the blanks with appropriate words from the words that you told them, and so on. So the usage of semi-controlled practice, whenever you start to remove scaffolding, and you will go through the next process, which is when your students are able to produce language using the target language that we explained in the lesson. So when we finish that, we go through the freer practice. By the way, you don't have to use controlled, semi-controlled, and freer all the time. You can use controlled and then freer practice without semi-controlled practice. It depends on the lesson, how complex it is, how difficult it is to your students, and it depends on the student's level as well. In the freer practice, the main goal in the freer practice here is to improve fluency. If you remember, when we talked about controlled and semi-controlled, it's mainly about accuracy, not fluency. So here, freer practice is mainly for fluency, to improve the communicative approach or to provide students with opportunities to produce language using the target language. So students have here freedom more than the other two examples. Students are producing language, so they can start preparing role plays using the target language. They have discussions, they have debates, they can have a creative writing task, they can start preparing a presentation, they can have a speaking task using the target language. So here, there's no correct answer. There's no one correct answer because you may have 5 groups and each group will answer their own way. That's why it's free. They have the freedom to express themselves using the target language. I know that now you have a lot of questions in your mind about the 3 different types of practice activities that we mentioned today, but I will help you giving you some task types that we all do in our English language classroom, like drilling, gap filling, skeleton sentences, multiple choice comprehension questions, and now we will go through the type of the practice or the activity. If you have drilling, it's mainly controlled because now students are doing that with the teacher and they know what is the correct answer. Gap filling will be considered as a controlled activity, practice activity, as we mentioned before. Skeleton sentence is a controlled also language system because they are expanding or they are putting the sentence in the correct order. So for example, you can give them she yesterday shopping, new dress into. So, and they will start to form the sentence. She went shopping yesterday for a new dress. So it will help you a lot whenever you have a target language, which is grammar target language. When it comes to multiple choice comprehension questions, so it is controlled receptive skills. Controlled receptive skills is focusing on the listening skills and reading skills as well. Multiple choice comprehension questions we said before, and here writing what you like on a practical topic. This is freer practice. Why? Because it used the productive skills. What are the productive skills? Speaking and writing. So whenever we have speaking and writing in a free way, it means this is a freer practice. It focuses only on the fluency, not the accuracy. The dictation. Dictation is a control the practice. Excellent. Role play, semi-control the practice, because sometimes they can use the productive skills. The information gap activities, semi-control the practice, because we can have different answer or different information to complete the task. And read the headline, look at the picture, and speculate about the text content, this one also is a semi-controlled practice. Here we have other examples for the activity that you can use, like plan the perfect school. This is mainly for your practice because we're using all skills. So we use the target language. It is task-based learning approach because students are producing the language using the target language. Producing means speaking or writing. Match the picture to the word, the definition to the word, the intonation to the emotion. So all these things are controlled practice. Identify the differences between what you read and what you hear. This is also controlled practice. It's mainly about intensive listening and reading activities. Put the paragraphs in the right order, so it means it's a controlled practice because there's only one correct answer and students are experiencing here putting the things in the correct sequence. This was all for today, and I hope you enjoyed our session, and I hope it is beneficial for you all. Wait for lecture number 5, and the quiz, inshallah, will be posted next Monday. Get ready and finish quiz number 3. Best of luck, dears. Thanks.